Moving on, Pope Francis is in Iraq on a landmark 4-day tour to rally for the minority Christian community. This is Pope's first international trip since the COVID-19 pandemic began. Pope Francis' Day 2 in Iraq began with holding a symbolic meeting with Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani. Al-Sistani is one of the most powerful figures in Shia Islam. The meeting was held behind closed doors at al-Sistani's home in the holy city of Najaf. During the meet, Shia leader affirmed his concerns that Christians in the country should live like all Iraqis in peace and security and their full constitutional rights. In few hours, the Pope will be holding an inter-religious prayer in Ur's archaeological site, revered as the birthplace of Abraham, the father of Judaism, Christianism and Islam. Now, the Pope's visit in Ur will focus on bringing harmony between religious groups. The Pontiff will then return to Baghdad, where he will hold a mass at the Chaldan Cathedral of St. Joseph. The Pope landed in Baghdad on Friday to begin his historic tour. After arriving, the Pope said that it is an emblematic trip and it is a duty towards a land that has been martyred for so many years. The visit of the Pope has a highly symbolic value given the importance of Iraqi Christians in the history of the faith. But the trip is fraught in danger, not just in security concerns, but also in the midst of the country's highest infection level since the start of the pandemic. As we just mentioned, this is the Pope's first international visit since the COVID-19 pandemic began in 2019. Of course, there were concerns of coronavirus and security in Iraq. However, the Pope decided to go through with his plans to go on this 4-day trip to Iraq, as it is symbolic. He wanted to be there as a pilgrim of peace. He said this in a video message that he released a day before departing. He is now in Iraq. He has already had his meeting with Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani, of course, to bring peace and harmony in the country and also to talk about coexistence of Christian minorities in Iraq. Al-Sistani, as you know, is one of the most powerful figures in Shia Islam. The meeting was held behind closed doors. Every facet of the meeting was, of course, discussed between the two parties, and during the meet, the Shia leader also affirmed his concerns that Christians in the country should live like all Iraqis do, in peace and security and with their full constitutional rights. Well, this was his second day in Iraq, and in a few hours, the Pope will be holding an inter-religious prayer in Ur's archaeological site, revered as the birthplace of Abraham, that is the father of Judaism, Christianism and Islam. This will focus on bringing harmony between all these religious groups and the Christian minority in Iraq. He will then return to Baghdad, where he will hold a mass at a cathedral of St. Joseph. This is, of course, an emblematic trip, and he said that it is his duty towards a land that has been martyred for so many years. The visit of the Pope has a highly symbolic value given the importance of Iraqi Christians in the history of the faith.
قداسة الأب الأقدس، الضيوف الكرام، سيداتنا سادتنا، أنا داود آرا.
The Pope's encounter with Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani, the spiritual leader of millions of Shia Muslims, took place in the holy city of Najaf. It is the Pope's first international trip since the start of the pandemic and his first ever visit to Iraq, in fact. COVID-19 and security fears, of course, were looming large. The 84-year-old leader of the Catholic Church had earlier told reporters that he felt duty-bound to make this emblematic journey, which will see him visit several sites over the course of these 4 days. There aren't very many details of his talks with the Shia cleric, but of course, coexistence and harmony were the major points of discussion between the two.
لن نرد أن ننتظر أحدا ليقدم لنا العمل.
This is his second day of the visit to Iraq. The meeting between the Shia cleric has already happened. He will soon be back in Baghdad, where he will be back in Ur before that, where he will hold a mass, and then he will return to Baghdad, where he will hold a mass at the Cathedral of St. Joseph.
لقد لقينا تشجيع من
He will also be holding interreligious prayers in Ur's archaeological site, which is also revered as the birthplace of Abraham, the father of Judaism, Christianism, and also Islam. This is also, of course, to promote harmony and peace between all these religious groups and talk about the importance of coexistence and to strengthen the hopes of the Christian minority in Iraq. This is his first trip to Iraq and, of course, his first trip since the COVID-19 pandemic began back in 2019. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.